And a very good Sunday morning live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo, wherever you are, whatever time zone you happen to be in. I guess we're all in the morning time zone on our Saturday and Sunday shows, which start at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. During the week, we're here Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. So welcome to the show. Whether you're listening to us, whether it's on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, or perhaps on one of the podcast platforms such as Amazon Music, or perhaps uh, let's take a look at Google Podcasts, for instance, or Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We're just about everywhere you can imagine. Most of the major podcast platforms do carry our show. And also, if you're on the East Coast, you could watch us on TV on Blackjack Television. That's where we are there. And of course, we're also on milehighradio.com out there in the Colorado region as well. So once again, thanks for listening. Got a lot to talk about today. And of course, we got basketball. So we're going to take a look at the line movement and see how the pros are looking at the game between the Bucks and the Hawks. We have two baseball games to look at that we're going to go into deep looking at as well, as far as line movement and pro looks at this. Washington against Miami and the Dodgers against the Cubs. We'll be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the streaking, winning or losing streak, giving ideas to how they're doing. But first of all, let's catch up to what we normally do every time we start the show, and that's looking at what happened yesterday as far as sports are concerned and betting especially. In the NBA, the Suns beat the Clippers 84-80. They now take a 3-1 lead in that Western Conference final tournament. That's the first game of the postseason that closed as a pick'em. Actually, it closed as a pick'em, but again, keep in mind, depending on what part of the country you're in, whatever sports book you're dealing with, you may have had a number plus or minus in this particular game. But as far as Vegas was concerned, and as far as the consensus was concerned, it turned out to be a pick'em. And of course, the number stayed way under the total of 217 and a half, no doubt about that. Now, of course, the favorites, they still lead 3-2 straight up in this round. But the dogs, hey, they still lead 3-2 against the spread in this particular round. The favorites lead 46-26 straight up, but they're 41-30 against the spread, and that's almost at 58% overall. That's the entire tournament right from the first ones. The home teams went down to 4-2 straight up. They're 3-3 against the spread in this round. The home teams lead 41-32 straight up, but they're only 38-34 against the spread, which is almost at 53%. The unders in this round are 4-2. All overall, they're 37-34. So in that game, we had the Suns beating the Clippers. Now take a 3-1 lead, and then we come back from our break. We're going to take a look at what the pros are saying about the Bucks and the Hawks game, give you an idea as to what's going on with that. Now, as far as baseball is concerned, yesterday the favorites really went rampant. Yesterday, the favorites were 12-2 yesterday. One of the big losses yesterday, one of the big winners on the dog side, by the way, was Arizona. Okay, beating San Diego with a plus 240. 240 on the money line. San Diego losing. They were on their winning streak. They lost. They had an 8-game winning streak going into yesterday. They lost that game. So now all of a sudden, Arizona, San Diego, that game becomes part of the what we call the swagger theory as far as winning and losing streaks are concerned. We'll go into more detail on that as well later on. Because there was no hockey action yesterday, so there's nothing there. The Stanley Cup is now being played for. There's none today, no games today. And so, well, yes, I think there is one game today. I'm sorry. One game today. There was no games yesterday, is what it was. You're going to have the Canadians playing against the team today. So that's the story. We're not going to cover that one, but just to let you know, yes, there is a hockey game on tap for today. Meanwhile, something is happening in sports as far as horse racing is concerned. I want to bring you an update on something that is happening in New Jersey. So go figure, New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, spent most of my life in New Jersey. Well, not most of my life, but the first, say, 19 to 20 years of my life in New Jersey. And of course, in New Jersey, if you grow up in New Jersey, especially in the section that I grew up in Jersey City, which is right across the river from New York City, gambling was just something you did. You just started doing it probably as soon as you understood what the lines meant. And so we kind of go back a long way. So New Jersey has always been at the forefront of this legalized betting situation. They're the ones that sued, that finally won in the Supreme Court, that allowed everybody else to kind of join in along with them as far as legalized betting was concerned. But now they turned the clock on horsemanship. They turned it back about 2,000 years to be exact, because before they stopped jockeys when it came to using their whips or their crops, as they're called. That was kind of a new situation. No other tracks were doing it. They told their jockeys, you can't use them in the races. But now they've also done something that will affect the future of gambling on American horse races. And what has to be considered progress, okay, you got to call this progress. The state Senate and the General Assembly voted unanimously to approve fixed odds wagering for horse races. Okay, to kind of give you an idea, will offer separate betting markets alongside whatever the mutual pool is. That's what it's going to be. New Jersey bettors should finally be able to enjoy and to be able to bet what people in England and Australia have been doing for years and years and years, for generations, in fact. In other words, let me look at it this way. If a horse player looks at the board 5 minutes before a race and is afraid because those 10-1 odds may drop down considerably, that person can get a bet down with a bookmaker who will lock in at that particular odds. Likewise, on the other side, if that same bettor does not want to deal with bookies' limits on multi-race or exotic bets, the pari-mutuels will still be the same. So you could bet either way. No private bookmaker will assume the pick six risk that mutual pools can really handle. So when it comes to the exotic bets, it'll still be as whatever the odds are as far as the pari-mutuel numbers are concerned. Now, while bettors still need to be good or even be a lucky handicapper to come out ahead, you're already winners because of the expansion of the options that you have. So if you're a horse player and you got soaring takeout percentages, last second batch betting by computer players, this is a reason to celebrate. Definitely. So conspicuous by their absence, though, are the big boys and the big girls, the big hitters, the DraftKings, the things of that. Eventually, however, they're going to fall in line as well because the public is going to demand that they come in. This is not like the simulcast nickels and dimes that Nevada has been fighting over for close to 2 years. These are big bucks. This is at a time when per-race betting has actually been growing, in part because the sport really never stopped going during the pandemic. So it's still very big. Anyone invested in the business of thoroughbred betting will not want to miss out on this opportunity that's going to be taking place in New Jersey, and it may not have a giant footprint as big as the Supreme Court decision back in 2018, which kind of opened the floodgates, but there will be nationwide push, no doubt about it, at other racetracks throughout the country to have fixed odds models brought in as a racing app somewhere wherever you are, especially once those horse players in New Jersey kind of get a look at it, and I know they're going to love it. It's actually great because I know I spent many, many years at the racetrack. I own my own racehorse, so I kind of go back even that far. I made my living at the racetrack for 5 or 6 years. And the one big thing that that was really coming out, especially lately with computers and things of that nature, is these people with computers and using that type of technology were waiting for the last couple of minutes before they made their bet. So this way, if you saw odds of 10-1, like we said earlier, let's say a 10-1 you saw it on the board. Well, if you waited till a minute before race time, that may drop down to 7 or 6 or 5-1 because of these guys that come in at the tail end. All of a sudden, bang, the big money comes in at that point. And of course, then you say, well, it's not worth it to me to come in at that 5-1. I would have been better off at 10-1. So kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen. So with this new system, whatever the odds are at that time when you make your bet, those are the odds that are going to hold true. Now, obviously, going in the other direction, it's not going to be as great because it may go from 10-1 to 12-1, and you're locked in at 10. But we'll be looking at that closely. We'll keep you up to date on it. All I can tell you for certain, it is a great idea. It's been in England. It's been in Australia for many, many years. They used to have, local bookmakers that walked around the track, and whoever you wanted to talk to, you got locked in, and that was the odds that you had. So that's the story there. We'll keep you up to date on it as well. So let's get going. Let's get that first break out of the way. And like we always say, if you've listened to the show before, we take 3 breaks. Each one is of a minute duration. When we come back, we're going to look at the NBA and the big game on tap for tonight. So let's take that break, and we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. We're back again, back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. We're coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. I got to slow down, but I just want to get that story in about horse racing. I'll tell you, being a horse racing fan all these years, I'm really glad to see this happen. And you know what? I may get back into it once again to see what happens. Because now, once they go on to the apps, all you got to do now is no matter where you are, you don't have to sit and wait and watch the odds moving up or down. You see an odds that's there that you like, bang, you put it in and you got it. I used to have to go to the track every day. And during the summertime and the spring, early fall, absolutely gorgeous. Sit outside on the grass, lay on the grass, enjoy the sun, watch each race as it comes by. But I'll tell you, then getting that traffic on the way back home at 5 o'clock in New York City, trying to get from Belmont Park or Aqueduct back to New Jersey certainly was no fun, especially if you had a losing day. It even made it worse. Anyway, enough about me. Let's get back to what we're talking about. We're listening to us right here. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. In the meantime, there's one game on tap for tonight. And of course, I stand to be corrected. There are no hockey games for tonight. Okay, so stop looking. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was right when I first said there weren't any. Then I started thinking about it. I said, gee, there's probably at least one, but no, there are no hockey games tonight. But there is an NBA playoff game, 8:30 tonight, Eastern Time. Milwaukee Bucks Atlanta Hawks down in Atlanta. This is game 3. It's an Eastern Conference Finals situation. The series is tied 1-1 because after losing the first one to Atlanta 116 to 113, the Bucks came back, had a dominant performance in game 2, crushing those Hawks 125 to 91, and easily covered as 8.5-point home favorites. Now the series, like I said, goes down to Atlanta. Tonight's pivotal game 3 opened with Milwaukee, a 5-point road favorite, 5 points. The public is happy to lay that short spread with the Bucks, coming off that 34-point blowout victory before. However, there's always this however, despite the majority of bets coming in on the Bucks, the line has actually dropped down to Milwaukee as a 4.5-point favorite. Now, some of the shops have even gone down to 4 in Vegas. So what this means is it's called a reverse line movement, buying low on the home team. The pros are grabbing the points with Atlanta in this game. Of course, they probably got in at 4.5, maybe even at 5 at some point, okay? So the whole point is this. You want to get in. If you're looking at the Hawks, you want to get in as soon as you can because that number may drop even further if you look at it in that direction. The pros have also targeted the under. The under's been doing very well so far in the playoffs, and generally speaking, it does, okay? You understand something. This is it. It's not like a one and done, but they have to keep winning and they have to be very careful so they up their defensive skills and they kind of drop off on the scoring end. They play more defense, slow things down a little bit more because they don't want to make a mistake. So the total has actually dropped. It started at 224.5, dropped down to 224. In fact, there was a majority of the bets that are on the over because we know that the general public, they love over betting. So they're coming in on the over on this. The pros are coming in on the under. The over under is 1-1 so far in this series. When the total is 215 or more in these conference finals, the under is at 61%. Not only this season or last season or 2 seasons ago, we're talking about over the past 10 years. That's a real sample for you. When the total is 220 or more, the under is 80% in the conference finals over the past 10 years. So those are the analytics. The under is 77% in Hawks games this postseason. So the under is 8-5 in Bucks games as well. So the series is tied at 1-1. The Bucks are still at minus 400 as favorites to move up into the finals. And of course, the Hawks are dogs at plus 310. So taking another look at this game, Milwaukee against Atlanta. In Atlanta, the pros are on the Atlanta Hawks, taking the points, and they're on the under in this game as well. So that's the only game in the NBA for today. We didn't have any picks yesterday as far as the NBA is concerned. So going into today's games, we're still at 64.1% as far as betting goes if you stayed with the pros whenever we gave them to you. Again, we just give you the information. We'll leave the rest up to you. The same thing as when we're talking about the win-loss, different situations there. It's totally up to you to decide which way you want to go. So let's get that second break out of the way. When we come back, we're going to be looking at baseball. We have 2 games to look at. We've got Washington against Miami and the Dodgers against the Cubs. So just a reminder, you're in the sports wagering zone. We're going to be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you for listening. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, like Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. We're on most of them. You can find us just about anywhere. Thank you very much for listening. We greatly appreciate you listening to the show. Numbers are moving up every day. So you guys are helping. You're talking about it, maybe talking to your friends about it. We're picking up numbers every day, doing better and better as we go. So thank you. We really thank you very much about that. Before we get to the two baseball games, these are the updated NBA title odds. We just got them from BetMGM. I want to pass them along to you. The Suns are at a plus 105 to win the whole shebang. The Bucks are plus 115. The Hawks are at plus 1,400. The Clippers have dropped down to being a plus 2,200 to win the title in the NBA. So those are the latest odds on the final four teams that are remaining. And depending on how you look at it, those are the numbers to see. Anyway, let's get to baseball now, very simply. Yesterday, we had two selections in the system. And of course, we had a 50-50 split. We had the Cubs against the Dodgers, had the Dodgers in that game, and that was a winner. We had the Yankees against the Red Sox, and, well, unfortunately, the Yankees lost, so that was a loser. So we were 50-50 as far as games yesterday were concerned. The day before that, we had two losers and a winner. Day before that, we had two losers and a winner. Then we had two winners and a loser. So it kind of bounces back and forth, as you can see. It's never a straight line. It's not all winners or not all losers, but you have to stay with the system as it goes up and down, and hopefully there are more ups than downs. So that's the story so far, and we're still up around 54%. On the plus side, over 54% win percentage as far as watching and betting along with how we feel the pros are betting. So let's get started with today's games. At 1 o'clock today, Washington Nationals 36-38 down in Miami to play the Marlins 33-43. So after they lost the first game 7-3, the Marlins have really come back with a pair of wins over the Nationals. They outscored Washington 14-4 along these two games. So in today's series last game, the Nats send out their ace, Max Scherzer. He's 6-4 with a 2.19 ERA. The Marlins come back with Sandy Alcantara. He's 4-6 this season. He has a 2.93 ERA. Not bad at all. So looking at the line, open with Washington, a minus 130 road favorite. Miami, a plus 115 home dog. Now, the pros, they seem to think the value is on Scherzer, and it's a pretty low number at 130. It's a chalk number that is really right where you might like it to be when you got a pitcher of that quality pitching. And it's really too good to pass up as far as they're concerned, because they're doing it with their money, so you can see, because Washington has now moved from being that 130 to being 135 on the money line, on the minus side, of course. The Nationals have value, okay, as a favorite with a low total. The total in this game, 6.5. Now, historically speaking, low totals always seem to benefit the favorites because there's a less amount of expected runs that are probably going to be scored. And if they're going to be scored, they're going to be scored by the better team. That's the philosophy, the thinking in that direction. Scherzer is 18-7. That's 72% in his career against Miami. Washington is also going to lean on its hitting in this one as well. They're hitting at 248, which ranks them 7th in the league. The Marlins are at 232. They're ranked 21st. Washington is 22-12 as a favorite this season. Miami, they're a 17-29 as a dog. Now, Scherzer pitched against the Fish once this year, all the way back on May 2nd. He threw a complete game a 5-hitter, allowing just 1 run, and he struck out 9 because the Nats won that game 3-1. So this is the favorite. Washington Nationals against Miami. The pros are on the Nationals because, again, even at 135, getting a pitcher like Scherzer, that quality, you're doing pretty good at that price. So the pros are on that particular game. Meanwhile, over in LA, you got the Cubs against the Dodgers. Same teams that played yesterday. Yesterday, the pros had the Dodgers against the Cubs, and it was a winning situation for them. In the meantime, this is a game that starts about 7 o'clock Eastern time. The Chicago Cubs, who are 42-35 this season, up against those Dodgers, who are 46-31. Now, this is your Sunday night baseball grudge match, okay? The Cubs stole the series opener, if you remember, 4-0. But the Dodgers have since ripped off a pair of wins. They beat the Cubs 6-2 on Friday, and they beat them yesterday 3-2. Now, in tonight's final game, the Cubs come up with Adbert Alzolay as their pitcher. He's 4-6 with a 4.19 ERA. The Dodgers start their lefty veteran, Clayton Kershaw, 8-7 this season with a 3.43 ERA. Now, as we look at the line, it opened with the Dodgers a minus 185 home favorite. Chicago, a plus 170 road dog. Now, the pros don't seem to be worried by that big price on the Dodgers, and they've steamed the Dodgers up even further, going up from 185. If you look at it now in most places, it's at minus 200 on the money line. The Dodgers in this game, they have value. They're a non-division home favorite. So far this season, those people are at 63%. The Dodgers are 72% this season as a home favorite of a minus 175 or more. So any games that they've been a favorite at minus 175 or more on the money line, they have won 72% of the time. Now, we've also seen home favorites do good on Sunday Night Baseball, especially with the Lions at 28 as favorites this season. The Cubs, well, they're 15-20 whenever they're dogs. Los Angeles is 25-13 at home. Chicago, 16-22 on the road. So in this particular situation, the pros are on the Los Angeles Dodgers over the Chicago Cubs, just as they were yesterday. In the first game, the National against Miami Marlins, the pros are on the Washington Nationals. They're on the big pitcher, Scherzer, who's pitching for Washington. And, of course, with the Dodgers, you got Kershaw going. So they're going with the quality pitchers in both games. So those are the two baseball games on tap for today. And like I said, so far going into the season, we're a little over 54% as far as win percentage is concerned whenever we follow the pros on what their picks are for that particular day. So that's the story there. And once again, just want to remind you, if you want to get a hold of us, it's not very hard. Just simply send us an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. And just once again, I want to remind you about the newsletter we're working on. We're going to hopefully have it ready for you by the time the NFL season comes into play. But we need to know that there are enough people out there that are interested in receiving the newsletter. A lot of work will go into putting that thing together every day, bringing you up to date with stats and information that's going to help make you a better handicapper. So if you are interested, just send us that email, same address, the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com, and just say, hey, I'm interested. You don't need to send us a whole letter about what's going on or whatever, unless you want to. By all means, we read everything. But if just simply say, hey, yes, I am interested, we will get in touch with you at a later date and kind of take it from there. So that's the story there. Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. We'll be back after this final break. We're going to take a look at the winning and losing streaks, how they happened yesterday and what's going for today. And we'll be back in just about 60 seconds. And welcome back. Welcome back. You're in the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms as well. So let's take another look at this. Winning and losing streaks. We started doing this a couple of weeks ago. One of our listeners, a couple of them actually brought it to my attention. So we're kind of looking at it, kind of give you an idea as to what it is. And that's the one thing about the show. You know, you guys out there, you're listening to some of this information, and then you kind of going and listening and looking in between the lines, try to go a little off kilter a little that might be more helpful for you. And that's really important. We kind of refer to that as a thought experiment, you know, where that's what Einstein used to call it, a thought experiment. You kind of look at something and you think about it, you see what is it about this that I can make a little change in that perhaps will help me in my handicapping process. So you guys sent in, wanted to hear about as far as winning and losing streaks are concerned. So we started watching it for a while. And just keep one very important factor in mind. We look at a streak of 6 or more. If a team loses 6 games or they win 6 games, we here at the station consider that a streak. In other words, you have to have a number, and it's got to be a consistent number so you have something to work off of to see how it's doing. Now, as far as you're concerned, if you're interested in betting on winning or losing streaks, you have to set the number yourself. You may want it to be 8 or 7 or 9, 10, whatever. Whatever it is you want, it's totally up to you. We're talking about streaks and streaks beginning after 6 wins or 6 losses. So yesterday we had a game between Baltimore and the Blue Jays, the Toronto Blue Jays, Baltimore Orioles. The whole situation was this: Baltimore was on a 6-game losing streak, and then they finally won a game. Now, there's an added situation as far as betting on winning and losing streaks, and it's called the swagger theory. And so we've been following this as well. Here's basically what it says. If a team comes off of a winning streak and they lose a game, they will more than likely lose the next game as well. So that's how you would bet it. If they're coming off a losing streak and they win, then they're probably going to win the next game. Well, in this Baltimore-Toronto situation, where Baltimore was on a 6-game losing streak, finally did beat Toronto, so they would have been the bet yesterday if you were looking for a swagger bet. And if you would have bet them, you would have lost because they did lose the game itself. One of the game that was played yesterday that was in this category as well, as far as winning and losing streaks, was San Diego. San Diego had an 8-game winning streak, finally come to an end yesterday. Arizona, of all teams, plus 240 on the money line, beat San Diego yesterday. So now Arizona, okay, that game against San Diego now becomes what we call a swagger theory bet. And the bet would be on San Diego to lose, so you'd be betting Arizona to win. But again, that's totally up to you. We're just giving you the numbers, leaving the rest of the situation up to you. So that's the only game that we really see right now that kind of fits into the category of streaks, even at 6. Okay, so if you're at 8 or 9 or 10, you're definitely out of the question right now. So that's the story as far as winning and losing streaks are concerned. And once again, looking at that Arizona number yesterday, plus 240. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, a couple of our listeners kind of brought to my attention, and I did some study on it, and I gave you the report on it, was taking a look at teams that are plus 170 on the money line or more and just betting those games, just betting that team. It's been doing very, very well since then. I don't know how many of you guys have jumped onto that, but it's a very simple process. All you got to do is take a look and see what the money line is on it. If it's 170 or more, you bet the team. If you don't, you just don't bet it. You don't bet that game. So We're going to do a more close-up look at it, try to come up with some more numbers for you. We're going to wait till June comes to an end. We're right near the end of June right now. So we'll be able to give you an April, May, and June update as to how that little very simple system happens to work. And so once again, brought to our attention by you guys out there. We give you some information. You're looking at it and you're saying, you know what if we do this? What if we kind of change a little bit and go in that direction? How does that work? See, that's what's important. And that's what's going to make a better handicapper out of you, which means, hey, at the end of the season, maybe you'll have a few more bucks in your pocket than you would have had if you didn't do some of the things you're changing. So that's the story. We'll keep you up to date on it. And of course, that's going to be a big part of our newsletter as well. Anyway, let's take a look at what's happening today. In baseball, as far as the pros are concerned, they love the Washington Nationals over the Miami Marlins. They love Scherzer in this game. It's the favorite, but he's at a low favorite. When you get Scherzer at minus 130, 135, that's kind of like a bargain if you want to take a look at it. Because now that we've said all that, no doubt about it, he's probably going to lose. But anyway, Washington is the pick of the pros. The Cubs against the Dodgers. This is a game we had yesterday. They had the Dodgers, and they won that situation. They're on the Dodgers once again, and probably the main reason for that is because of Kershaw. He'll be pitching for the Dodgers. The only thing is you're not going to get off that light. It's up in the 200 range right now, so you're going to have to lay some heavy-duty wood in order to cover on this game. Pros on the Dodgers, very heavy load. Meanwhile, in basketball, the Bucks against the Hawks, the pros in this game are on the underdog, the Atlanta Hawks, and of course are on the under as far as scoring totals are concerned. So that's the story for today. And again, we want to thank you very much for listening. It's Sunday. I hope you spend some time with your family. I hope you have a great Sunday and a beautiful Sunday, whatever the weather conditions are in your particular area. And also, I hope you have a profitable one. If you're going to be betting today, you got that basketball game. There is no hockey. I'm coming back on that again. Okay. And of course, we got the two baseball games we talked about, as well as one of the winning-losing situations if you're interested in that game as well. So that's the story for today. Like I said, if you're betting, we wish you the best of luck. That's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you're ahead at the end of whatever season it happens to be. Right now, we're talking basketball and baseball. So that's the story. So thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow, Monday through Friday. We're here at 12 noon Eastern Time, 12 noon Eastern Time on Saturday and Sunday. 11 a.m. And for you horse bettors out there, it's going to be coming to your state. It's in New Jersey. You guys, let me tell you something. If you live in New Jersey, you're in great shape if you love horse betting, because you're going to really, really do very, very well if you're doing your handicapping as well. So that's going to be in your favor. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens. So once again, thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow at the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your platforms for podcasting as well. So until tomorrow, I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again at noon tomorrow on Monday. Goodbye, everybody.